Hello, everyone, and welcome to Retail Revelations, LinkedIn Live, which is part of the Beard Bros Media Network, at the intersection of culture and industry, where we take you behind the scenes of of the cannabis industry, so you can be fully informed. My name is Chelsea Mulligan. I am your host, also known as the Dispensary Whisperer. A little about me: I have spent 12 years in the legal cannabis market. I've been a medical cannabis consumer since 2002 due to a back injury in gymnastics. I have open managed or triaged over 45 dispensaries on my own. And between doing the same for manufacturing outlets and cultivations, and then working with a few consulting teams across the country with some retails, that brings me over 90 licenses across the country, which is why Retail Revelations exists. Having tough conversations, unglamorous sometimes, but essential. We dive into the truths about cannabis retail, what hinders a license holder, what helps the license holder. And that allows us to talk about creating a great company culture, which today is our focus. HR shapes businesses and tackles unique challenges, and we're going to share success stories that highlight the power of effective HR practices today. Jessica Cranney is joining us. And she is an HR guru who's been making waves in the national cannabis scene. But before cannabis, she was instrumental in HR and retail in mainstream industries. So retail is nothing new to her as she helps cannabis businesses navigate that. So Jessica, please share a little bit about yourself and your story with us.
You bet. And thank you so much for having me. I am delighted to be here. I'm a big time fan and subscriber to the work, Chelsea, that you do and in affiliation with the Beard Brothers. And so I'm just delighted to be here to start off with. As you shared, I spent, prior to getting into cannabis, 17 years as an executive with AT&T, leading large organizations. My last role was leading 250 locations across 5 states. And then I was delighted to be able to find my way into the cannabis space. For me, that was a home run of my personal interests. I've long said that cannabis was all over my personal resume long before it was on my professional resume. And so when I had the opportunity to join a large vertically integrated operator in Colorado, that's where I got the opportunity to cut my teeth in the industry. And it was such a home run for my personal interests and my professional background. I worked with that operator for about a year and a half. And at the onset of COVID, found myself really being able to add value to a lot of other operators. And today, I like to say that I provide, from a talent management perspective, the intersection of cannabis industry roots and enterprise or traditional suits, and taking the true heart and spirit of the cannabis space and helping to elevate that with proven business models and people leadership techniques and practices that we know are going to drive success. So today we do 3 things exceptionally well from a talent perspective. We help operators attract and recruit top talent. We help them train and develop high-performing leaders. And we help build them cultural cadences that will engage and retain those teams long-term.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing.
You bet.
So we'll touch on that today and anything else Jessica wants to bring up. I have a few questions. Anybody listening, feel free to pop in with some questions and we'll get to them. What she and I would really like to talk about today is a little bit of high turnover, lack of culture and personality in your business. Honestly, both of those things are incredibly prevalent in our industry. A lot of license holders I've worked with, as sure you have, think it's normal for their whole entire staff to turn over every 12 to 18 months. And it's 1, not normal, and 2, doesn't have to be their normal. So to start as just an overall, before we dig into the meat of it, how do you strategically influence the direction, overall success, and growth of the cannabis business you're working with, and kind of align HR practices with their bigger goals? Because as we know, license holders don't necessarily understand it, and they just need it to fit in.
Yes, and in many cases, it's not something that people don't want to do. It's a case of maybe we don't know what we don't know. People who have built very successful cannabis brands are wonderful cultivators and know a tremendous amount about the plant, but maybe not some of the more people specific things. And so the one thing I really try and understand first is, where are you today and where do you want to be? And if we do kind of a start, stop, and continue in that regard, and really what we're analyzing in that is, do you have the right leaders in the right roles doing the right things? Because truly, your location, your retail location, the quality of your flower, your pricing, your promotions, all of those are really critical. But the most critical and important asset of any operator are your people. And if you've got those people who are engaged and experts in their field and feel like they're a part of your organization because they're communicated to and they're updated about things that are related to the business or their department, they'll do the right thing for their operator. They'll not want to leave when somebody comes along and offers them 25 cents or 50 cents or $1 more or a few $1,000s annually because they feel bought in. There's some teeth, there's some hooks, there's some DNA that is woven between that employee and that team or the people that they work with. So understanding who's who in the zoo in your operation, and who do we need? How can we reallocate somebody's skills or experiences? But do you have the right folks in the right positions doing the right things? And then the next thing that I really help them build, as you called it, a strategic move, and we're going to talk about this a lot. I'll probably have it on my headstone, but the 4 words that I say, multiple times every week is cultural cadence and signature moves. And what I mean by that is I think that people say the word culture. We've got this kind of culture or that kind of culture. You're looking for a good cultural fit. I don't disagree with any of that. But my next question is, how is it real? What does that look like or sound like or feel like to your employees, who are your internal customers, so that they in turn can deliver an extraordinary experience to your external customers, which are your guests shopping with you. So we're going to we'll probably come back to cultural cadence and signature moves, but ultimately that is a committed, consistent operating rhythm that is dedicated to your culture. And we can dig into that a little bit more. I've said a lot. I'll pause.
Gosh, no, you can always keep going. I resonate with all of that so incredibly much. So Joseph, I found it difficult to make the transition from non-cannabis world to the cannabis space, mostly due to experience in the field. How difficult did you find it to get into the space? Jessica, I will let you answer.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I answer that a lot. One, Joseph, I'm not sure if you're in the industry yet or not. I hazard a guess you might not be. And I want to say bravo for taking the steps to engage in the industry and really put your fingerprints on the industry, get a pulse of the industry. Those are going to be things that really do help you stand out. And when you do get that interview, you're able to say, gosh, I have been engaged in networking events, or I attend these monthly webinars or what have you, that I read MJ Biz Daily, or I get these newsletters that keep your pulse on the industry. The next thing I would say is auto rejection is unfortunately more common. I would say, Joseph, you are not alone in the auto rejection, and that's unfortunate. What I would recommend is set yourself apart from the 387 other Squid Game candidates that are on that LinkedIn or Indeed job posting, and be bold. Reach out to whoever posted the position directly. If it was posted by Samantha Smith, connect with Samantha Smith. Hi, Samantha, I saw this posting. I know on paper I might not look like what you're looking for because I don't have cannabis experience, but gosh, I'm super invested, and here's what I'd like to tell you. If I could just have 15 minutes of your time, be bold. What's the worst that could happen? They don't respond to that. Oh, well, they're already not responding to your application. So take it a step further and don't rely on that easy apply button, especially when it is a, heavily sought after position. True story, gang. I often don't post positions that we're working on online because we get too many applicants and we're not able to truly review all of them. And so network with people if you're out of the industry. Joseph, the other thing I would say is, and this is kind of a little bit of a free tip, but if you look at a lot of industry publications, many times there will be this company promoted a new CFO, or there's a whole section of movement within, the executive roles within a variety of companies throughout the country. Reach out to those people personally. Say, hey, I'm not in the industry, but I noticed, Nike, the CMO at Nike just joined an operator there in Portland. Reach out to that CMO who was from Nike and got into the industry and say, congratulations, I'm really intrigued by that. And I know you're busy. When you have 10 minutes, can I just bend your ear? By the way, that person is now thinking about you because whenever there's a change in leadership, usually there's a change in their team underneath them. And are you kind of putting yourself at the forefront of that list because of your engagement, because of your involvement, and because you genuinely are showing interest?
I love that response.
Be bold. Be bold, and you're more than welcome to call me after. We can chat about more best practices.
Honestly, being bold is part of being in our industry, right? Owning who you are, being able to say the hard things or say the honest things, but as long as we're respectful and professional and not out of line, like that's okay. And separating yourself from the pack in any way you can, figuring out what flips your switch. I think that'll be my tidbit to Joseph's question. Figure out what flips your switch. You don't have to do the things you don't like. Figure out what you're good at, what you can bring to the table, what is different than everybody else, and that will set you apart as well. So those two mixed together should be a little bit helpful. That kind of leads us into onboarding and retention, to be honest, because I think that's where an employee's first foray into the company is when they're interviewing, when they're onboarding, and like, is there communication during that time? Is there clear guidelines on what they need to do to get their cannabis, like if we're in a state where a cannabis license is needed or anything like that. So tell me kind of what your secret sauce or sauces are in an effective onboarding process that not only keeps the employee around and engaged, but gives them a taste of that company culture immediately.
Definitely. And there's so much there that you said that resonates so deeply with me. And I think I'd start by saying, one, it's important for an employer to remember that interviews are a two-way street. And as much as people have applied to be a part of your company, depending on how that, and you touched on it marvelously, Chelsea, the interview experience and process drives as much of how well they onboard or how well they feel like they want to stay a part of that interviewing process. You know, they get through a first round one, what I would say is remember that interviews are a two-way street. The candidate is interviewing the company as much as the company is interviewing that candidate. The other thing I would say is don't rely overly on a job description or on a resume. I think that on the recruiting side, it's 80%, the job description and your resume are going to have a 75 or 80% match, right? So that's kind of the science. We can dance if this job description and my background kind of look close enough. The magic happens in the art, and that's the cultural connection, the pace with which people move. Maybe a candidate shows up to a facility and everyone's wearing orange socks and they have a massive orange sock phobia. Okay, these are things you're not going to glean from a Zoom interview or from a job posting. So remember that it's a two-way street. As the operator or the employer, have a clearly defined role and an interview process. What I mean by that is, if you think you need an operations director, don't just type that into Indeed and download the job description and post it as your own. Think about what is the real need that you're trying to solve. Recent example, somebody was looking to hire what they told me was an operations director. They couldn't find that person. And I asked a couple of questions, and lo and behold, they weren't really paying what a director title should warrant. And truly, they were looking for somebody to manage their contractors for their facilities, HVAC and lighting and electricians and plumbers, they had multiple sites and things would just kind of happen. And so I said, okay, well, we can find you a facilities manager for the compensation that you're looking at. But they were, my mom used to say, you're looking for milk in the hardware store. And, it's those kinds of things. So one, as the operator, be very clear about what the need is, what the pain point that you have is, and write that to your audience appropriately. And two, as the operator, have a clearly defined process, have a timeline, who's involved, what steps are they involved, and really start with the end in mind. When do we want a butt in seat for this position? If it's August 1st, How many people do we have to interview this week? How many second interviews have to happen next week? How many third interviews also happen that week or the next? Who's involved in those? And stick with that, because you don't want to lose a really qualified candidate because they felt like maybe you were losing interest. Even if the interview process is going to be longer, set that expectation. If we say we're going to follow up with you at the end of this week and you're still thinking about them, but you don't have any updates, tell them that. We haven't forgotten about you. We've had some other things to prioritize. You're at the top of our list for next Monday or Tuesday. Then they're staying involved. And why that's critical, most of the best applicants tend to be, or candidates, I should say, not applicants, tend to be passive. They're maybe not actively looking. They're maybe not keeping their resume updated. They heard about something through a friend of a friend. And so, if they weren't really actively looking and we don't keep them engaged, you run the risk of losing somebody really talented. So that's kind of on the process, the timeline. Again, who's who in the zoo for the interview process, and stick with it, because that drives your onboarding and your retention. And so when it comes to that and starting off with that cultural appetizer of what is going to be their cultural entree for when they've been with the team for a long time, one, have a welcome kit. And what I mean by that is have everything ready for them on day one. Engage with them throughout. If it's 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out, somebody from the team should touch base with them no less than weekly. How's it going? Do you have everything you need? Did we get your onboarding? Okay, just send them a funny meme if you need to, but keep, tell them a bad joke, right? Like whatever, but something that, hey, we offered you this job. We're really excited. And when they get there, have some things that are celebratory, right? If it is on site, are we writing a welcome card and everybody signs it? Are we getting coffee and donuts that morning, or bringing in pizza? A mini networking event, on this site or within that department for this new person. Have some swag for them. Make sure they have their laptop or business cards, if those are things like any of the tools or tech that they would need to be successful. That should be nicely packaged, truly with a bow. I'm not saying that as an example. With a bow, glitter, bells if you want. Because think about how exciting this is for them. This person is starting a new opportunity and a job and a team and a company that they're really looking forward to. We want to go into that gangbusters and ride that excitement and enthusiasm. And then next, once we've welcomed them, truly have an onboarding plan so that they can be trained for success. And this is at all levels, whether you're a frontline bud tender who's never worked a day in cannabis in your life, to a C-suite executive who is coming in, maybe to the industry for the first time, or something like that. But things that are time-bound and measurable for all levels of your employee, whether they're brand new, they're being promoted, or, they're maybe more experienced in their career, but everybody has opportunities to develop. So have training and onboarding plans.
Wonderful. Thank you. I just want to touch on the little blurb that came up from the gentleman. I think his name was Robert, that was put up on the screen. Robert, I think my message to you would be the same as I said before, is figuring out what sets you apart from the other people. What do you have from all of those years of corporate work outside of cannabis? And now you have 2.5 years of deep dive in cannabis. How do you mesh those two and package that to an employer, or even to just a colleague, right? Because word of mouth and networking in our industry is sometimes bigger than just an application. I'm sure you would agree, Jessica, like meeting someone in person and shaking their hand is totally different than just seeing them on a screen.
The number of times that somebody has told me, when I've said, how'd you find that job? How'd you end up here? Why do you like working for this company? It is word of mouth significantly more. It is a relationship. It is word of mouth. It's that bold move. It is separating yourself from the 347 people who are on that job posting. Let me also tell you guys this. Here's a fun tip, free fact. Not all companies use LinkedIn. Not all companies use Indeed. So just reaching out to people in the industry, even sources in cannabis and Illinois in LinkedIn, and you're going to see people who have HR in their title, which means they probably have something to do with hiring. in cannabis, you're starting whatever, if you happen to be in Illinois or Michigan or a number of states we've now legalized. I'll pause because my Chelsea got a little bit of a.
You're a little bit pixelated. I'm trying to figure out if
there she is. Wait.
Can you see me?
Keep getting a little wheel from these.
You are just frozen. So I think that the internet connection is a little unstable.
I can see you and hear you fine. Test.
Can you hear me? You're blurry, but I can hear you and see you. Okay.
Oh, okay. Then I'll just keep talking. Your screen went black and it just gave me a little wheel, but we can go back to Rob's comment. Okay. I agree with your comment that reaching out, making personal connections, being bold, adding people on, LinkedIn to your network, just so that you start to see things. Because sometimes you might see somebody who posts, we have this job opening, but it's not posted anywhere. It's reach out to me for details.
Yep.
LinkedIn Recruiter is expensive. And if operators are trying to be cost effective, that is not the most cost effective solution. Truly, it's fairly cost prohibitive. And so it's not, especially for our industry, while it is a wonderful tool, it is not the only one that operators use. So don't be afraid to be bold and reach out.
Agreed. How can an HR team or you as the HR person integrate that cannabis culture and feel that we all love so much and resonate with, and really why we're all even here? How do you integrate that into the workplace to ensure the employees feel connected to the industry? Because I think I personally think that's important. And I think that's a way for them to grow as employees, but also the company to continue to grow.
I agree. You've touched on this earlier, but the importance of communication through all departments and through all levels. And I'm not saying that we have to share every P&L with every single bud tender. However, critical things about the company that help them feel bought in, that when we ask them for their input, we show them how we used it to make a change or to implement something new or different. So one, I always like to understand what like the ongoing communication and engagement plan is. One of the things that I recommend is, no less than monthly. Do you have a call? You can call it whatever you want, but across your enterprise, or a meeting if everybody does happen to be on site, but that does touch every department leader. And I'll give you an example, but if you're a cannabis operator who has 25 retail stores and, a handful of area managers, and you've got 2 production facilities, and you're also, white labeling or what have you, what do you do every month at least? I'm not saying you have to do it daily, but on a monthly basis, what do you do to bring everybody together and give those company updates? And down to that store manager, like all 25 store managers are on this call this month. We're going to hear from the purchasing manager about this promotion. We're going to do some recognition of birthdays and service anniversaries, and we're going to let the IT team give an update. But that store manager is going to hang up from that call and go and tell their bud tenders, hey guys, this is what I just learned, and this is what we're doing, and this is what we should be excited about. And I feel empowered and engaged because I'm connected to, and I just got this update from, our VP of retail, or from our CFO, or from whomever. So think about doing something monthly that does get to every department leader so that they're turning around and updating their team and filtering that message, disseminating that message throughout your organization. Think about doing things quarterly. These don't have to be a fortune. I'm not suggesting you have to go get a ticket to the NBA local team suite and spend $10,000 to, watch the Lakers. If you can, by all means, nobody's going to tell you not to. But I understand that we can't all do that. What do we do to think about things that are unique to our workforce or unique to our area, but demonstrate that commitment? Think about a quarterly event. Doesn't have to be a fortune. Can we go to Costco and spend a couple of $100 on some hot dogs and ice cream and have a family fun day? Bring your kids, bring your dogs. We're all just going to hang out at a park. Or you know what? We can take all, and you have to plan things around retail. I understand that, right? So it might be done in 2 different shifts. I'm not saying you do this every week on a Saturday. One, Wednesday out of a quarter, you have a day where if you're an opener, you get to show up to something else, or closer. But that day, we're doing something. You can rent snow tubes if you're near a cute little tubing hill, in a mountain town. Do a hike, things that don't have to cost a lot, but say every quarter we're going to do something together. It's voluntary. We want to see as many of you as possible. Come out and join us. We're going to float the river. Bring your own, air mattress, whatever.
No, getting to do things outside of that 4 walls is important.
Yes. And maybe not everybody shows up to every quarter, but it's something as a company that you have said, it's part of our cultural cadence. It's one of our signature moves. We communicate to everybody, every department leader, no less than monthly, quarterly, or biannually, if that's better. Make up what works best for you. The other thing, and one of my favorite things, and best practice, whether it was AT&T or LiveWell or any of the clients that I've worked with over the last almost 5 years. Some of you might kind of chuckle at me a little bit, and that's okay. Give it a whirl because it works. If we think back to high school, gang, spirit weeks go a really long way for engaging and driving people together. And by the way, if you're a retailer, you can tie that into sales metrics, which I know everybody loves. So, Monday is Rockstar Monday, and everyone wears their favorite band or concert t-shirt, right? And then, but you're also, if you're in retail, it's Munchie Monday. And for every 5 edibles you sell, you get to put a raffle ticket in the bucket for a prize at the end of the week. And Tuesday is Twin Day, and it also happens to be Topical Day. And Wednesday is Wax Wednesday and Wacky Sock Day. And everybody participates. And so we're posting those on our social, or your internal communications person is getting those pictures from this store and this cultivation facility and who had the wackiest socks. We're putting that in a newsletter at the end of the week, but we're bringing people together. On Friday, we're all wearing our favorite sports teams, and it's Flower Friday. So we tie it in and we do some things fun. The other thing that I love about that is when you as an operator have a commitment to a cultural cadence and you commit to those signature moves. Again, I'm not talking about daily or every 3 hours, monthly, 1 activity, quarterly or biannually, 1 activity. But when you do that, you're engaging the hearts and minds of people to not leave and to not go someplace else because they're offering just a little bit better employee discount, or they let them work from home 1 day a week. So it doesn't have to be spendy. It does have to be authentic. It does have to be real. And I think what I would offer as a part of that is the silent killer of culture is saying you're going to do something and not, or doing it once and letting it fizzle. So, and the last thing I'll say, and I know I've said a lot, but probably my favorite question, think about ways that you can embrace our roots within your local communities. How does your company serve your community from a cannabis perspective? How are we, partnered with wellness centers or gyms, right? I've got a lot of clients who have worked with local, and these don't cost you anything, but they demonstrate your commitment to your employees in ways that speak to our workforce a little differently. I've had several clients who will partner with local gyms to do a neighbor discount. They come in, they get 10% off a class. Your employees come in, they get 10% off of a pre-roll and whatever. They've partnered with local childcare or pet care for their employees. And it's just a simple mutual employee discount. Your employees get a discount with us. Our employees get a discount with you. It doesn't cost them anything, but gosh, I may not care about, medical benefits because I'm, I've never had a medical emergency, but boy, I know that I've spent a lot on pet care. And if I had an opportunity for some discounted veterinary relationships, or when I go out of town, knowing that all of my peers and colleagues all trust this same dog boarding place that my employer helped connect me to, that's unique. And it's free.
I have never done it on the veterinary level. I've always done it with local restaurants and smoke shops and stuff, but I like taking it to that next level.
Go to a gym, go to a dog board.
Very cool. So that was your favorite question. That leads us into one of my favorite topics, the turnover topic.
Okay.
My experience going into all of these licenses across the country is that they're usually having high turnover. They can't figure out how to connect with their staff. And, I would like to know, you being able to be the HR person across the country, what is the current state of turnover in the cannabis industry? Why do some businesses find it normal? And how does it stack up to other industries that you've
Yeah.
been in?
It is, I will say, retail in general, and I recognize this is mostly a retail focused call, of course. Retail in general has higher turnover than any other department in any company or industry. It really doesn't matter. Retail, it's not for the faint of heart, folks. Not everybody is, you know, like a glutton for punishment like Chelsea and I are, right? We get that. It's okay. It is. You're standing. It's long hours. You're dealing with the public. Some of them are delightful. Some of them are, pretty heinous. You have to keep going. So I recognize that it's not for everybody. Retail does have a higher turnover usually than any other department. Cannabis has higher turnover than other industries that I've experienced. There's a few reasons for that. I will say that in most states, an employee has to pay to be licensed to work in the industry in that state. And so there is a little bit level of entitlement that comes sometimes from an employee perspective, where I paid to be in this industry, and so I should get to tell you how your business is run. I believe that everybody's voice should be heard. And if you've got data that supports why you'd like us to do something differently, I'm going to listen for sure. However, just because you paid to get that badge doesn't mean that you get to tell me what time we're open, or you get to make your own schedule. And so those things create some friction. The other thing I will say is the industry, although we're 10 or 15 years in even the most mature states, that is a blip on the radar of a scaling industry. When you think about Nike, how long have they been doing this? FedEx, how long have they been doing this? Hilton or Marriott hotels, right? I mean, we've been doing that considerably shorter. So that's one piece. We're still figuring it out, right? Every day rules change, laws change. I won't get into the noise that has become the noise for our industry, during this time of year. But it's important to stay vigilant. It's important to keep your head down and say, here's what we get to do today, and how can I continue to make this as good as possible given the parameters that we're given. I see a lot of trends, though, Chelsea, in kind of the trends vary by state based on the maturity of the industry in that state.
That makes sense.
So a California, a Colorado, you might find people exiting the industry. I got into it. It was fun. I don't really know what I know. Or maybe they're exiting the industry in that state. Like, hey, I'm willing to move to Illinois or New Jersey, or, so that is a trend that we see on the turnover side. Unfortunately, in the more newer and emergent markets, the Illinois, the Missouris, the New Jerseys, we're seeing a lot more of the turnover because there is that shiny new penny that comes along. And it's another operator who says, here's 50 more cents, or I'll let you work from home on Friday, or I'll, give you pizzas one day a week. Okay. And so that kind of gets back to what you've already started to talk about, Chelsea, which is that communication and that engagement. And, when I work with people, I have a little thing that we fill out when we start, but there are 4 key places in an employee's life cycle that you as an operator have to have at least one signature move for. Onboarding and hiring for success, right? Which we talked about in the beginning. What is your cultural move? Is it that welcome kit, right? Then ongoing communication and engagement. What do we do as far as newsletters? How do we communicate to our department leaders on that monthly or bi-monthly, whatever basis? The third one is performance management. We've talked a lot about the fun stuff, and I do that intentionally. I lead with recognition, because when you lead with recognition, and you lead with fun, and when you lead with spirit weeks, and you lead with a quarterly hike or whatever, you then have earned the right to pump the brakes on the fun bus for individuals who are not performing to the minimum level of expectation. But you as an operator have said, hey, we have trained you, we communicate, we celebrate, we high five publicly. Privately, we're going to have a separate conversation with Tommy or Susie. but you've earned the right to be able to do that because we've led with all of the other fun stuff first. I'm going to demonstrate that I'm willing to lead by example. I want to do the things that you want us to do. Most people are going to follow along. For the few that don't, that becomes a different conversation, but you can have that conversation with them. And I don't want to say feel good about it. Nobody likes having those, but you can look yourself in the mirror and know that our side of the street is clean. And what can I do differently to help you develop your attitude, your skill, or your knowledge about the area that you're not performing in?
I've never thought of framing it in that way. Like I've always thought like, okay, we need to create these things inside of a company. We need to do these things to get the buy-in and the retention and all of that. But I've never thought of it in that way. Like if you do all of those things, now you've earned the right for those conversations.
Not and you earn the right to almost have it as kind of an aw shucks. At least the first one was like, gosh, Chelsea, Chelsea, is there something differently that I can do for you? I'm really concerned. Here's all the things that we've done. Here's how the majority of the team has been performing. And here's what I'm seeing from you. Is there something I need to do differently for you? You committed to doing these things with us. I've seen you not doing them. Is there something you need differently from me or not? But again, your side of the street is clean.
Yeah.
You can frame it as I have and am willing to do anything to support you. If it's truly just your ability to execute, then that's a decision that you need to make for yourself. And I love when people say, "Oh, I'm really trying to sell one more lighter per transaction per customer." I believe them a little bit. I don't think that they've offered it to every single customer every single time. So I lean down and I untie their shoe. And I say, "Try to tie your shoe. You'll either tie it or you won't, but you can't tell me you're going to continue to try and sell lighters with every customer if you're not actually saying, would you like this lighter for $2? Now, you have to be a little bit careful. If there's somebody who I can tell is a sneakerhead, I have to maybe just do a hypothetical. What would you do if I untied your shoe? Because the sneakerhead will just come unglued on you. And I am one that can say that. But, pose a different tie your shoe. You either will or you won't. So offer a lighter to every customer. That is trying. I've heard you not do it with your last 3 customers. That's a data-based conversation that you can have meaningfully.
I have really enjoyed all your insights today. Just as a little recap, I think I'll speak for you a little bit, but you can correct me. That, communication is key throughout all parts, onboarding, interviewing, throughout their life cycle of being an employee, even communication in the exit, which we're probably not going to have time to jump into today. But I think that's probably a second episode conversation.
That is the 4th piece, right? When I said onboarding, performance management, communication, the 4th piece is offboarding. And to your point, everybody deserves acknowledgement, because otherwise it creates confusion and questions. If somebody is departing after 15 years of service, boy, they get a party, right? It's a big deal. If somebody has just stopped showing up to work after 2 or 3 weeks, we're obviously not going to celebrate that, but we will acknowledge, hello team, Jessica is no longer with us. Please treat her with the same respect and customer experience that you would any of our valued guests. Now people aren't running around going, oh my God, what happened to Jessica? Did she get fired? Did she quit? Did she die? Let's just own it.
Acknowledge it. If you don't discuss it, it breeds gossip and all the things.
Absolutely. Uncertainty. So sorry to interrupt, but you're not wrong. Offboarding is the 4th touch point that I say in that employee life cycle.
Never an interruption. I am the host. This is your place to speak. So hey. And thank you, Casey, for enjoying the show. Okay. So communication across all boards, engaging in your employees, honestly, for lack of mincing words, give a fuck about your business and about your employees, is how I look at it. Tell the audience.
People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. I had a mentor tell me that many, many years ago, and that has stuck with me. That was what helped me birth the people first reputation that I have built. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that does take commitment. That does take consistency. Again, they're not things that you spend all day, every day doing, but if it's part of your foundation, if it's part of your operating rhythm, it becomes second nature. The other thing I'll say, and I know we're wrapping up, but I just have to close out. When we're doing celebrations, because we talked a lot about recognition, celebrating those milestones, or we're opening our 3rd dispensary, or we're moving into another state, make the celebrations and acknowledgement something that everybody gets a part in. Rather than getting the executive team a rented luxury yacht with a 5-star, chef, and posting that on your social medias for your bud tenders to see, maybe get everybody a t-shirt and send Chipotle. And that way everybody feels, because something I've seen it happen where like milestones and things that are huge celebrations have sometimes backfired.
Yeah.
Because people felt like, well, I've helped contribute to that and I didn't see or feel or even know that I helped contribute to that. So there was one more thing that I just thought about and I wanted to throw out.
No, I appreciate that, because you're right. Those things are the things that will create the negative company culture, no matter how hard you've worked on your internal company culture. Just one misstep like that can make multiple people feel slighted. And then it's a snowball effect at that point. Well, my next question to you is going to be, please share, it's not really a question, but please share like where people can find you, how they can connect with you. But before you do that, please share any last thoughts you would like to, any tidbits you have, anything that you feel we haven't touched on today that you think is important for the listeners to know.
I think you summarized it really nicely. The key to talent management is a commitment to consistency. If I had to net it all out, it is a commitment to consistency. And I would challenge people to think about it the same way that they think about growing their plants, right? There's timelines and when you move from stage to stage and what you do in there, and you have a cadence, you have an operating rhythm for harvesting that, growing and harvesting that plant. What is your operating rhythm for growing and harvesting your people? Do you water them monthly with a call? And do you turn up the music and talk to them lovingly once a quarter with the Spirit Week? Those kinds of things. So think about treating your team with the same cadence that you think about treating your plant.
I love that so much. I'm so glad I asked you to say one last thing. Okay, but now tell everybody where they can find you on LinkedIn, Instagram, all the things.
You betcha. So Jessica Cranney, I am on LinkedIn. My company name is GRN Mile High. We are on both LinkedIn, as I mentioned, as well as Instagram, GRN_Mile High. We can send out my email information, my phone number. I'm way too old for TikTok or Snapchat, but anything else is super fair game.
I feel that so much. I actually recently got a TikTok, but I refuse to actually put things on it. I only do it for when I'm bored at midnight and want to scroll TikTok.
Yeah, I haven't gotten there yet. So LinkedIn, guys, Instagram is great. My mobile number is 916-479-2652. Emails jcranney@grnmilehigh.com. Holler at your girl.
Again, my name is Chelsea Mulligan. I'm here on behalf of the Beard Bros Media Network. Please make sure you give them a follow at Beard Bros Farms on Instagram. We all would like to sesh with them weekly, but we can't in person all the time. So make sure you go follow and sign up for their Friday Sesh newsletter so you can be well informed on all cannabis news. And if you are in California, Massachusetts, or Missouri, they have fabulous RSO products, or if you're in Canada, they do make small batch flower there. You can find me on the Instagram as the Dispensary Whisperer or LinkedIn at Chelsea Mulligan. And as you can see at the bottom, I love that prompt, by the way, so I don't forget, please tune in on July 23rd, 10 a.m. Pacific time with Brian Applegarth and his guest, Matt Kurth, to discuss all things cannabis travel. So thanks for tuning in, and I hope you guys have a great day. Bye.